You're listening to From the Chair, and I'm your host, Mike Hamilton. Join us each episode as we talk to athletic directors from across America. We're going to talk about topics like leadership, career development, issues of the day, and I can promise you we're going to have some fun along the way too. So sit back, listen in, and let's dive in. Let's go. All right, welcome in. Today's episode features Justin Sell, the athletic director for the South Dakota State Jackalopes. Justin, thank you for joining me today, man.
I appreciate it, Mike. It's always good to be at the start of a year, and I think all of us have a lot of hope and looking forward to some great things ahead.
No doubt, man. Love it when you come back to campus, the energy that everybody brings with them, and everybody's undefeated at the time and that kind of thing. It's always a great way to jump right in. And speaking of jumping in, we're going to jump in. And I think I told you offline, we're going to talk probably, spend most of the time talking about your current career there in Brookings. But I want to dial it back a little bit further, because as you were sharing off the air, 30 some odd years in college athletics, I can feel that. That's the time frame ish that I've been involved in college athletics. And I had a really good conversation, I guess it was maybe last week, with Tom Wishistill from Big Sky, just reflecting. He's another guy that, like me and you, he's maybe doesn't have quite as much up here as they once did, and we're old hats now, right? And so I think that for me, well, let me back up. So you're from Oregon originally, and you've worked at a number of different institutions, great places, and then you were hired as athletic director from Northern Iowa. So you've seen a lot of different perspectives. And I'm curious, this is maybe too big even to ask, but I'm going to ask you, like the takeaways that you've seen that encourage you about college athletics, and the things that are sort of, a little cumbersome to think about at night when you go home. And I don't expect every granular detail, but I know you're thinking about those things.
Yeah, start off with a PhD question right out of the gate. I think one, I've been fortunate. Many of us, as you make your way through your career, you get a chance to work at different schools and different conferences. For me, living in different parts of the country, working at a small private Catholic institution like Villanova, a massive state institution like Ohio State, a large private institution like Syracuse, Teachers College, being Northern Iowa, and having gone to Bowling Green State University, and then land grant school here out in the Plain States. And so you take something from each of those experiences. An opportunity to learn different things, different ways things are done, different regions in the country. And I think that's helped, for me, kind of set my values around college athletics. I remain extremely hopeful. I think we faced challenges over, the last 100 years in college athletics, and we've always found a way to manage around those. I don't have a lot that actually keeps me up at night. I think the challenge is staying kind of true to who you are, what your school is. We're trying to be the best version of us and kind of block out some of the noise. That's the biggest challenge. The issues themselves, there's a couple key pieces, especially the kind of employment status of student athletes, that really need to be kind of figured out for us to then create the pathways forward for the different kinds of models that we might have in regards to sports on our college campuses. And not that different than over time. There's different levels of competition. There's Power 5 groups of schools, and FBS, FCS, 1 AAA, Division II, Division III. So we've always had different designations, but it's figuring out how is it going to look moving forward, and how is that tied to higher education for schools like South Dakota State.
So in the time that you've been the athletic director there, you guys obviously, most of your sports you play in the Summit League, and then you've got the Missouri Valley football, and you've had, I think you're in the Big 12 in one of the sports. And I'm interested, how do you seen nuances or things from being in 2 or 3 different conferences with different sports that you feel like, hey, I wish that, I won't ask you to highlight a conference in this, okay? But things that you've found that you felt were really good about, that you think that others around the country and other conferences ought to share, that you may have found takeaways by being in a couple different conferences at one time?
Yeah, well, I think I go back first. Being in some of the conferences I was in before coming here really helped. We were a transitioning school from Division II to Division I, so my first year here was really our second year eligible for NCAA tournaments. And so as you think about that, and I worked in the Big East, I worked in the Big Ten, I worked in the Missouri Valley Conference, and so and then in our region, certainly with those types of schools. So you had a sense of what you were trying to build for yourself. And, I think some of the things that we've done, obviously, Missouri Valley football is the best FCS football in the country. Certainly been kind of proven out the last 10 to 15 years. And, there's some great lessons that I think all of us push each other to continue to be better. I think having worthy rivals matters tremendously. NDSU's success certainly drove us to continue to want to be great. I hope we're doing the same for them in return. And so I think embracing kind of that worthy rival piece to make yourself better is something we've done well there. From a Summit League perspective, our uniqueness is really our basketball tournament in the spring in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, with the men and the women combined tournament. We're averaging 9,000 fans a game. The environment, and that could be Saturday at noon, the first games with a blizzard outside. It doesn't matter. People are showing up, and we're actually generating revenue. So, as a mid-major conference, to be able to generate revenue through our basketball tournament, and then to have such a great experience for our student athletes, I think there's some unique things. We have to obviously be pretty creative to if you want to play not only at our level and win, but to be able to beat schools in different leagues and different levels in all of our sports. Our goal is obviously to make the NCAA tournament, but it's not just that; it's to win games. Whatever win games means, I will never say Sweet 16 or anything else. I wouldn't define it that way. I think you have to keep your mindset open to what are the possibilities.
Hmm. There seems to have been, there's been really strong football at FCS level out in the Midwest and West for a long time, just as there was here in the South with Southern Conference and OVC for a long time. And I would say the power shift has come your way. You alluded to it just a minute ago. And by the way, congratulations on your national championship. Was it called a 22 or 23, 21 or 22 championship? Basically, when you guys finished, it was 22, right?
Yeah, it was 22. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I know you guys took a big group down to Frisco and all that was awesome. We exchanged texts on that back in the day. I was talking to Matt Larson not long ago, and you guys have had phenomenal football in the Dakotas. In two states that don't have huge population bases, and he was saying that this is in the context of transfer portal and consistent performance and all that kind of thing. And he said at their place, you know, almost all their kids are from North Dakota, and they're 5-year kids. They're staying there, and they really had not at the time. Now again, this has been a while. He had not seen a ton of upward movement in the portal, or folks coming down from FBS necessarily. I'm curious what your recruiting base looks like, and then let's talk football first, and then more broadly where you're recruiting from, maybe regionally or nationally.
Yeah, I think the answer probably is similar across the board. From a football perspective, we were really proud. We won the national championship last year with about 30 student athletes from the state of South Dakota. And what's really cool about that is 15 to 20 years ago, when we were making the transition from Division II to Division I, a lot of people didn't think we had Division I talent in our state. And not only have we proven that wrong, we've been able to attract those students and have them want to come here. I think whenever you set something out there as a potential, students fill it, and that's what we've seen across the board in all our sports. So we really certainly start recruiting inside out. We're going to recruit from around our hometown. We're 14 miles from the border of Minnesota. So, Minnesota's been a key recruiting ground for us. Very few Division I schools now with St. Thomas transitioning, but with the University of Minnesota. But there's a lot of talent in the state of Minnesota, and then certainly northeast Nebraska and northwest Iowa. When you look at those kind of areas, we probably have 60 to 70% of our student athletes come from those places. So, I think being able to have students that are proud to put your logo on their jersey and wear it to represent their people. I think we haven't had a lot of transfers. We can manage through that because a majority of our roster stay together. You have to get it old in sports to win. And we've been able to do that extremely well because we've got kids that I think, from a value perspective and what their families are about, South Dakota State fits for them.
Mm. So this will dovetail into this the most recent question. And by the way, these are probably not the most up to date numbers. You're going to probably correct me a little bit, but 19 sports, and you've had 10 sports who have either participated in won 62 regular season or postseason league championships since 2010. And it may be more. I don't know than 62, but 62 was the last number I found. First of all, congratulations. Over 10-year time to win 62 championships and across 10 sports is nothing short of phenomenal. So that's where I'll start. And then the second thing I would say is the fact that you've had broad-based success is another point of pride and should be. And the third part is most likely you've had schools that have tried to poach coaches during all that time too. So how have you thrown balance into that equation to develop the consistent success winning?
Oh man. Yeah, one, thanks. I appreciate I don't often look at the numbers, so you kind of forget them.
Yeah.
Those are, I think we take a lot of pride in the broad based success, and to think about the talented coaches and then the student athletes they've been able to recruit, the support we get from our university. Presidents are critical. I've worked for two amazing presidents. And then a fan base that's been willing to invest tremendously in facilities, scholarships, cost of attendance, other things that have helped us attract and retain talented people. So I think that's what goes into the success, the broad-based success. We're committed to it. It's interesting in this world because there's a lot of chasing. And sometimes I think we chase what we're not, or there's some fool's gold that looks pretty good. We've just plodded away. It took us 10 years of hard work to win a national championship. It didn't come fast. It didn't come easy. And so we had to figure out how to get 1% better and 1% better without strain from those things that have made us good. And I think the thing I'm most proud of, Mike, is you go back to the COVID and the pandemic, and then you walk into these last couple of years from a higher education perspective, and certainly in college athletics, the challenges that we face. We've had our three best years we've ever had in the history of our school at the most challenging times. And I think that speaks volumes to we're connected. We're proud to be part of something bigger than ourselves. We work really well together. Even when you don't have a manual on how to move forward, we figure it out. As far as the coach piece, it's challenging. Our coaches get called pretty much after every season, almost across the board in every sport. My job is to continue to support them, to care about them, to help them challenge themselves, to continue to be better, to narrow what that list is that's actually better than South Dakota State, and being able to provide, our community's outstanding, great place to raise kids. There's other things, and then you've got facilities and things that help you recruit. You can win here. So if you're going to leave, it better be somewhere that you can have equal success. And then my biggest job is making sure that we're developing talent underneath. We've had a chance to hire a few assistant coaches into head coaches roles. I think that continuity, and when you talk about roster management in particular with the transfer portal, the second a coach is even rumored to be leaving, those kids are getting calls. And so having some consistency and continuity has helped keep rosters together for us, which has allowed us to be able to continue to have that success and win. So that's really been my approach. I'll be the first person to give a coach a hug if they get that wonderful opportunity to better their lives and their careers, or paychecks, or whatever's important to them. But we're going to make it pretty hard because this is just a great place to be.
Well, I think some of the best coaches reside at places like yours. Rick Byrd, Hall of Famer basketball coach that coached at Belmont here forever, is a good friend of mine. And I remember one time we were having a cup of coffee, and he said, people take for granted the fact that, the 5 stars are gone for me. A lot of times the 4 stars are gone for me. I'm not in the same gyms with, Krzyzewski and these guys necessarily. Um, but then it comes down to, can I be the right evaluator of talent for the kind of kids that I know that can compete for us, but also have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and they're not afraid to play in Cameron Indoor Stadium against Duke. And he recruited those kind of kids and developed a system that honored and utilized those kind of kids. And so I think some of the best talent evaluators in the coaching profession are sort of in the zone that you're competing in. And that's not trying to be critical of the you're recruiting at all. It's actually a compliment, and so then that goes back to you as athletic director and your university administration to give you the wherewithal to take the time and effort and to have the resources to the extent the university is able to allow you to recruit those kinds of coaches. And a reflection, the idea that you have folks approaching your coaches, certainly that's a whole lot better statement than the fact that you never do, right? It says that you guys are doing something in the right direction. So I'm going to flip to a couple other topics here as we come down the backstretch that I just found them unique and interesting to me. And I host a show, so I get to ask the questions. But one is I found, during COVID, you alluded to all the different things you have to do, and you guys have had an auction there for some time for fundraising purposes, and you've got success in fundraising. I think maybe you're above 4 million or something like that now. But during COVID, your auction raised almost $1.8 million, and you're consistently hovering around those numbers. It's a very labor-intensive endeavor. We all know you have to rely on a lot of volunteers and your key staff members. But look, man, you may tell me something different, but I don't know a lot of people in America that are raising those kind of dollars from an event like that. And I want to allow you the chance to comment on that.
Well, yeah, I think first, our donor base, fan base is really interested in helping students, and what a wonderful way to do it through scholarships. Our entire bill's $4.3 million, and so we've been over $1 million a year for I think the last 7 years. We have a wonderful anonymous donor that matches every gift 2 for 1. And so that's part of where that growth or that volume certainly has come from. But, I would go back to the COVID year and raising $1.736 million. It was really fascinating. I think we were one of maybe 3 auctions that actually occurred that year, and we can all understand why. I mean, it's a labor intensive, but you couldn't gather, you couldn't be in the same buildings. And we basically were really trying to figure out, okay, well, it's worth $1.1 million in regards to athletic scholarships. Can we really afford not to do it? And then we kind of changed our focus, Mike, and we said, you know what? Let's turn this around. How can we benefit others? How can we benefit people in our community? How can we benefit our local businesses? That the restaurants weren't having any customers. I mean, they went to zero. We did a deal with Feeding South Dakota, and our anonymous donor matched every gift 2 for 1 there. We did high needs scholarships on campus. So we raised $210,000 for high needs scholarships. We raised $370,000 for Feeding South Dakota, and we raised another $1.1 million for athletic scholarships. We did a YouTube program. We delivered gift cards and wine to folks in town, which is part of the auction. So we brought it to them. And then we had chat rooms set up where you could jump in. We had former great student athletes and coaches jump in with people in their chat room or their table. And it just ended up being one of those nights that it was magical. And our university president, President Dunn, talks often. It was the moment where our university understood, look, we didn't just have to survive the pandemic, we could actually thrive in it. And it really helped change the university's mindset on what was possible, given obviously a really tough set of circumstances. So probably for my career, that might be the biggest point of pride, because a whole group of people, and mind you, that was from March 12th. We ran it May 2nd. So we had literally 6 weeks to figure out how do we pull this thing off, from technology to coordinating. And then the last thing is we gave people hope. There was something to look forward to. There was something to do. We were all stuck. We didn't know what we could do socially, and to kind of put a flag out there and say, hey, if we band together, we can accomplish some great things. We can help a lot of people, and we can have a little bit of fun doing it.
Hmm. Well, I would imagine there'll be folks that listen to this around the country and want to talk to members of your staff about what you did, because those are big and significant numbers. And you obviously COVID played a role in that, maybe, but you still have continued to have success in that. And well, I shouldn't say maybe. COVID did play a role in that, because you had to find a way to generate the dollars. I half expected when we came on air today to maybe see you in a construction hat, because if you look back, if you look at your career there in Brookings, man, I don't know, has there ever been a time when you're not building something? And I know you've got maybe a lot going on, but probably the most notable piece of the work right now is this Frost Arena project, and you guys are in phase two, I think, of a multi-phase project. And you made an announcement not too long ago that you had a $20 million lead gift for naming rights from First Bank and Trust, and I know that was significant and continue to move that forward. I guess two things. First of all, how are you making sure that you're giving proper cadence and a look into the different sports and their current facility needs, whatever they may be, if it's a locker renovation or whatever, and then at the same time building towards the future with all of your facilities? And then, this is a $50 million plus project. Maybe just comment on that specifically as well.
Yeah, I think it went back to my kind of first year here. We worked with the university on our athletic master plan and how that fit in with the entire campus plan, and looked at it from a 15-year perspective. And certainly, indoor practice facility, which we built and opened in 2014, was a $32 million all privately fundraised project. That was kind of the start, and it was important to start with that because it benefits every single student athlete. And we needed indoor space in this climate. It's critically important. I'm not sure how we did it before, especially preparing for championships and playoff runs and other things. And then we were able to do our football stadium at $65 million. Right after that, and opened in the fall of 2016. And so part of that master plan, the third piece, was the Frost Arena renovation. And we've been pretty fortunate. It's a $70 million project now. Costs have gone up a little bit in the last year with the construction market, but we had a $20 million lead gift, and then we had a $25 million gift from our anonymous donor that was put in the bank that next spring. And so we had a huge jump in the fundraising, and that's again a privately fundraised project. We had about 12.6 million into our practice gyms, which was kind of phase one of Frost. So there's a practice gym for the men and a practice gym for the women, both the same. You certainly could walk on probably a Power 5 campus and find a similar facility. So we're really fortunate with what that's done. Opened that in 2018, and then we just opened a $5 million wrestling facility that's certainly in the top 2 or 3 in the country here in last January. So with Frost Arena, you mentioned it. It's probably one of the most historical buildings in the state of South Dakota. We're working hard on how we capture our history. We have a phenomenal entrance and concourse that we're building that's specific to telling our history, trying to honor the building. We're taking the old SD logo off the middle of the floor and putting it up in the middle of that wall, and using some of the old pieces of the arena to help tell that story. And it'll end up being 5,300 seats. We'll have suites, club seats, loge seats. It's going to be absolutely magical, but it will be that one project that will really start to generate additional revenue for our entire program. It's the one that will help level us up. The football stadium was done on fundraising and then a bond. And so, we're generating ticket sales and corporate sponsorships, and appreciate our relationship with Learfield. We've needed it over the last 10 years tremendously. But all those investments have really gone into our opportunities for success. So when all total, it's about $190 million of facilities since 2014. And I don't say that from a a bragging standpoint or anything other than we have some donors and companies and individuals that are really willing to invest in us and invest in our students and invest in being good for the next 20, 30, and 40 years, not just about today. And so I feel pretty lucky. Hard to think there's a better AD job out there than the one I've got.
Well, I'll tell you what, when you've got vision that people can latch onto, and there are folks of resources who want to help an institution, when those things come together, you can create a little magic, right? And you guys seem to be doing that for sure. Um, I got two more questions for you, man. One's related to the current industry, and one's related to just a random personal question. The first one is, I'm always curious as we're walking through this craziness of the last couple of years with all the different realignment and portal and NIL and race relations, pandemic, all the different kind of things that have affected college athletics. How are you approaching the NIL at South Dakota State?
Yeah, I think, first off, I think the opportunity for students to have different opportunities to help pay for their education. And to be honest, a lot of ours are students that aren't on full scholarships to help them pay that difference in cost. I think is something that all of us can get behind. It hasn't been a huge demand. We certainly have the ability. But from a donor perspective, I think our donors have doubled down in wanting to put more money into scholarships or supporting their experience in different ways. Facilities certainly, and our students. There's been some that have been active. We've had some great examples of, two of our women's basketball players, Maya Sellen and Tori Nelson, started Her Turn, which is a charitable group that really is paying for young girls to have the chance to go to camp when they can't afford it. And so you see some of these other things evolve in the maturity that they have in their approach to using their name, image, and likeness. Is honestly, we don't see those examples very often. And I understand why nationally there's other stories that are maybe bigger from a national perspective, but we've only seen the positive benefits. But I would say it's been something that for those that want to put some time or effort or energy into it, it's there for them. And for others, it hasn't been a big deal. We really, I wouldn't say I'm worried one way or another.
Yeah.
We've taken an approach that will support our students and how they want to go forward. We really haven't had a lot with collectives, started having a few questions related to collectives, but that hasn't really been a big piece for us either. And Mike, we talked earlier, I mean, our transfer numbers, I think our coaches, if they're going to use it, want to invest in the students that we've helped develop versus going out and using it to find a transfer or to bring somebody here. And I think that's a little nuance or a difference for us. We're pretty fortunate that our students stick with us, which hopefully means they're having a tremendous experience. But we haven't really been hurt by the portal in that, and NIL has, been what it is.
Yeah. Well, I think my takeaway from that, as well as the other things I hear, I think that Justin, there are some big numbers that have been thrown out there at different places, and I think some of that is collectives that are doing things that you can say, will that be sustainable or not? Number one. Number two, is it pay for play or not? And then when you peel it all back, at the end of the day, there is opportunity for student athletes at what I would call a meaningful number that can make a difference in their life. And they're not egregious in nature in terms of the number of zeros or commas, right? And it can actually be beneficial. And probably, if we want to learn a lesson from college athletics and the NCAA perspective, is this is a bridge that we should have started building a long time ago, particularly as student athletes began to have more of a political platform and begin to take more charge of their own lives and the things that are happening in society. And so I would just share with you, I think that even the Power Five numbers you see from some people, that top level's kind of I'll call it an outlier. And when you peel it back and you see what's really happening in most of the sports, it's a lot of what you're talking about. So,
Well,
stay the course.
yeah, and I think, Mike, to follow real quick, I do think that our students see tremendous value in the investments that have been made in them, and so we're not starting from zero. there is scholarships, but we're also funding a great experience. They have terrific facilities. They have fans that come out and support them. They value those things every bit as much as making a little extra money. And for most of them, it's working a summer camp or having the chance to get a few extra bucks in their pocket. It's not even tens of thousands of dollars; it's 1,000.
Yeah.
I think we put too much into one thing, and we're famous in the NCAA. We talk about transfers, and then we move on to mental health, and then we move on to name, image, and likeness. Well, you got to think about things back into the total, and they're all just one piece of the things that we do. How do they work together to provide the experience in total that makes a student want to pick you and then stay with you?
Mm. So I had my best friend. He and his wife were celebrating their 40th anniversary. I think 40th, maybe high 30s, a couple weeks ago, and he called me and he said, "Well, we are in South Dakota on our anniversary trip." And he said that may sound odd to a lot of people, but he, along with I and with me and some of our other friends, one of the great joys after I've left, the day to day being in the chair was I had never gone pheasant hunting in the fall, and I'd always heard what a wonderful thing that was. And let's be honest, I didn't grow up really, even though I grew up in the mountains of North Carolina, I didn't grow up hunting a lot. Did a little bit of fishing, fly fishing, that kind of stuff, trying to catch a few trout. But I had a friend that just said, just come with us. And as much as you're going to hunt, it's the community that's developed around that becomes really part of the experience. And so I've gone with a company called Fellowship Adventures a number of years down to Platte Creek Lodge, down further south in the state, and just simply fell in love with it. So I'm not going to be able to make it out your way this fall, but at some point I'm going to come watch a game, and I'm going to then take advantage of being where you are. And just do you get a chance to do that very often with everything else you going on?
Yeah, I mean, the fall obviously is a little difficult. I've been hunting probably 4 or 5 times. I would probably label myself a little more of a country club hunter. I get a chance to go where they have the dogs and the trucks that help go block and do all those fun things. But there's just something magical, and it's a lot like golf, I think, in terms of the social piece of it. I don't know if people haven't hunted before. The opportunity to go with a group of friends. There's something about watching the different kinds of dogs work the field, and then to be out in nature and play. South Dakota, one of the beauties is it looks the same as it did 300 years ago. And so where you're walking across some of these plains and fields and farms, and there's a different beauty to that and a unique experience. Many places the cell phone doesn't work, which is great. It's a terrific getaway. But yeah, I absolutely love it. And there's world-class pheasant hunting out here. There's world-class walleye fishing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty interesting state from the wildlife perspective.
Well, you live in a beautiful place, man. It's been fun. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule, particularly as the fall is now rolling. And I know you got plenty you could be doing other than this, but I really just want to say thanks for joining me today.
Well, thanks, Mike. I appreciate our relationship, and good luck to all those folks starting the fall. I hope everyone has a great year.
Absolutely. All right, folks, you've been listening to From the Chair. I'm your host, Mike Hamilton. Today's guest has been Justin Sell, the athletic director at South Dakota State University, doing a great job up there. And if your travels find you in that area of the world, I'm sure he'd love to host you and show you around all the good things that they're doing. So join us here every week, every other week, and listen in to what we might be sharing. I think you'll get some entertainment along the way. Thanks, and have a good time. We'll see you next time.